Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Yes, well, it's something we do literally every Startup Grind event. So it's something that Derek, the founder of Startup Grind, started. He didn't start doing it, but he figured out it was a way to kind of get the crowd involved. So we do it at all the Startup
That was like our exercise for the day?
Yes.
That was nice.
Yeah, exactly. So you've been in a boardroom all day. That was your exercise. So for those of you who have not been to a Startup Grind event, this is truly two people talking, asking questions,
With microphones.
With microphones, so you can hear. If they're for whatever reason you can't hear, please speak up because we can always adjust the mics a bit. Is it too
Lights? Want some lights on it?
Sure. Thank you. So this is truly a discussion between two people about startups and what we bring and what startups can do for all of us. And we'll open up to questions about 8 o'clock-ish, maybe a few minutes after 8, and we'll have open questions for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then we'll kind of shut it off around 8:30. You're welcome to get up, go get a glass of wine.
Bring me some wine.
Yeah. So don't feel like you have to be stuck in your seat, but just be aware that we're up here talking. So, Liz, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, and thanks for helping us celebrate women in technology.
Yeah, you couldn't get a man for the job.
Try. Could get one.
Maybe next time.
Yeah. Maybe next year. So I have lots of questions.
That's a scary stack of paper.
3 sheets of questions, right?
Yeah.
So some of these questions have been actually sent to me by some of the guests. Right?
Okay.
So some I don't that's an interesting question. So here's one to start off. What do you do for fun besides eating chocolates and watching reality TV and taking care of your 2 kids and running a company?
Wait, there with chocolate. That's not on my list. Popcorn.
Yeah?
Popcorn's on the list. Wait, what were they?
So
Chocolate,
eating
reality
chocolates
TV.
and reality TV.
I
I've
think
heard
that was on the list either. I guess if you count Top Chef as reality TV. I was reading an infographic the other day about what wealthy people do that poor people don't do. And one of them was not watch reality TV. And I was like, I wonder if Top Chef is considered reality TV or only Real Housewives. I think it's an important distinction.
Yeah?
I mean, that's just me.
Yeah. What do you do for fun? What do you
I like to cook.
Okay.
It's cathartic, the chopping, the knives.
You like that?
Just have at a red pepper and
Just go it.
yeah. I like to be outside, so running occasionally,
Sure.
like
Some
once
activity.
a month.
Yeah, some kind of activity.
Yeah, I can get dragged into camping sometimes.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. The fun list is a little bit short these days, a little bit.
I would expect so.
Yeah,
You went to George Washington U.
I did.
Did it pick you or did you pick it?
Well, I applied to 4 colleges when I was in high school. One was Indiana University, which was in my home state,
Yep.
my safety school. And then I applied to Georgetown, George Washington, and American University, which have one thing in common. They're all in Washington, D.C. So I was pretty much thinking that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And GW gave me the most money.
That's probably easy to make that decision, isn't it?
Easy decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how many times did you change your major?
In undergrad, none. I changed my major in graduate school. I don't think most people do that, but
Most of the do the changing in undergrad
Yeah.
and then
yeah. In undergrad, I studied political communication, which is a combination of journalism and political science, which was interesting at the time because it was the era of Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I actually lived right near the Watergate, which is where Monica Lewinsky lived at the time. And I was maybe 10 or 15 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was confused with Monica Lewinsky by journalists several times, yeah. And of course I went as Monica Lewinsky for Halloween. I had a very realistic costume.
yes.
Tasteless, but realistic. But it was fun because we had a lot of journalists come and speak to our classes at GW. You know, we're right there, and people will come and commentate, was that a verb? Commentate on the situation.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting time to be studying media because a lot was changing in the media back then.
Yeah.
In graduate school, I started studying project management, ironically, and quit. I knew it was for me.
Yeah. Didn't think that was a history. It's like, there's no future in project management, right?
Yeah. Well, they were like, how would you project manage, the construction of an airplane? And I'm like, I'm thinking more internet stuff. Is that like not the same thing? No. So I went to telecommunications, which was the closest thing I could find to the internet
Yes.
in the 90s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At that point in time.
Yeah.
Now, tell us, so your mother is a leadership coach
Yeah.
of some kind. Tell me about how is that help or is it frustrating? Or is it both?
Is this being recorded? Okay. My mom comes up a lot in interviews and
Yeah.
just everywhere. It's helpful, mostly. She studied child psychology, which she used aggressively on me as a child. And then she moved to being an audiovisual librarian in my high school. So she was like kind of always there when I
So
was
she was at school.
in high school. Yeah, it worked to my advantage and my disadvantage. Advantage was I had someone to like drop my stuff off with. Disadvantage, if you steal your mom's stuff with a parking pass and get caught, you get sent to the dean's office.
Yeah.
So that was the downside. But when she moved into organizational development and leadership, it was really cool because we would kind of have like a little book club where she'd like tell me about the latest book she was reading on leadership or management and like give me the cliff notes. I didn't have to read the entire
Exactly.
Bible leadership book or whatever it is and leadership pipeline. She's read all of them.
Yes.
And so I get the nuggets.
Good stuff.
And sometimes I go read the whole book, but
Yeah.
she's outpacing me on volume.
So do you like have a bad day and call her?
Well, usually when I have a bad experience, it just comes out.
Yeah.
I don't call her because of the bad thing. It's more like she's asking me how the kids are, and I'm like, well, don't you want to hear about work? So sometimes she says yes, and that's my opening.
Okay.
I take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you should be able to call your mom and ask her some questions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mom/therapist.
Yes, exactly. So you kind of answered this a bit, but what advantages or disadvantages do you think you received from growing up in the way you grew up and in your current role?
Well,
I mean, the obvious one is you got a mom that's kind of a leadership coach. That's kind of cool. But
yeah, my mom was like the career person in my family. So my dad was oftentimes trying to find his true career. And so my mom was a little more consistent in her path. And I guess that was my model in a lot of ways. I think that the biggest influence from my upbringing that I think about today is that my mom was a Republican, my dad was a Democrat. And so dinner table conversations were interesting, especially in election years. And it was kind of like, we would just, there were three of us, there was me and two sisters, and we would just sit there at the dinner table like,
watch.
so I kind of learned to question people's opinions and examine things from a lot of different angles. That was my college essay, actually. It worked.
It worked.
And so I still think that I do that as a matter of habit, is kind of like play devil's advocate
Sure.
to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's a question I love that literally every person who sits in this chair gets asked. Where did you earn your first dollar, not from a relative? What were you doing? How did you earn your first dollar?
Should we throw out babysitting?
Yes.
Okay. I worked at a print shop at a, God, what did that company do? I don't know, it was like the print shop for some company. It was like in an office building. No, I was like using one of those big knives to like slice through printed paper and like binding things with those plastic binders and like copying and collating and like the big knife was the scary part. Yeah. But I was interested,
How did you get the job?
I don't even remember. I have a bad memory. I lost that memory. But I was interested I was a fine artist. I painted and drew and thought I was going to be an artist. And so I was like, oh, printing, art,
Kind of close. That's much.
And so that was my first taste of a paycheck, and I really liked it. I had a lot of jobs in high school. I painted murals for people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? I was a dessert artist. That was a good one. I got fired from that job, actually.
Dessert artist. What's a dessert artist do?
Do you really need to ask? Decorate the desserts.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, there was creativity involved. We had a whole lot of sprinkles of whipped cream to choose from.
Okay. So,
That was the only job I was ever fired from, for the record. Not because of my
But was it-
dessert art.
there was a lack of creativity.
Maybe if there's like no other questions at the end, we'll get to the stories.
Okay. So, tell me about mentors. One, do you have one? And two, do you mentor others?
I have a lot, and I try to mentor a lot. I had one mentor that was really instrumental for me in college, I guess graduate school. She was my boss when I was a fellow at GW, so I got a fellowship after undergrad to get my degree, live on campus, have an on-campus job. And so I worked for this woman, and she ran basically part of the kind of student services IT arm of the university. And she was just a badass. I was just like, oh my God, this is gonna sound nice. Like, you have like these boss I've ever seen. Like, she was just such a badass. She would just like go up and like fight anybody on anything she believed in. And I had never met anyone like her. And I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, she just commanded, she was like, 5'2",
Sure.
like little woman, and she just commanded the room. And so I just learned a lot from her, and I was like, here's someone who lives their life with an intensity that anyone would admire, but a generosity. She took me under her wing and taught me, and I was just like, this is who I want to be. So
that sounds like she had a fair amount of influence.
she did, yeah. She also read at my wedding, and like anytime there's ever any like minor blog post or article about me, she like shares it out on Facebook, and I'm like, still there,
Still
yeah,
still pushing for you.
yeah.
So tell us about your first job. PlayStation, that was your first job? I mean,
Out of grad
I
school,
guess,
yeah,
post.
yeah. I got a job as a temp at PlayStation
Yeah.
in the legal department
Very nice.
as an executive assistant.
That's not, you didn't choose to do that. You just
Well, that
wanted,
was
you
where
just
I was
wanted a
placed
job.
as a temp.
Yeah. You just wanted a job.
I needed to make money.
Yes.
I had a degree in telecommunications, if you remember.
Yeah.
This was 2001. 2001 was coincidentally the year the telecommunications industry fell out.
Yes.
And also there were a lot more jobs in telecommunications in DC, on kind of the Northern Virginia corridor, than there were in Silicon Valley, which is
Yeah.
where I was
Sure.
then living. And so I was like, well, this is not going to work. I can move to Sacramento and work for the state, but that seemed like a bad option. And so, I went to an agency and I was like, get me somewhere. And it worked out because I was a pretty good EA, having a master's degree and all, and typed fast.
Type fast.
So the head of legal who I worked for thought I was, maybe had a little potential and offered to send me to law school. And so I considered that briefly. I could work there, be an EA, go to law school at night, have a career as an attorney, and I considered it and said, no way in hell.
Yeah.
I was like, what I would really like is to work in the marketing department. Can you hook that up for me? And so he did, and I did get a job in the marketing department.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So you don't have this.
I haven't really regretted that
You don't
decision.
enter into this normal path. You can still get marketing by entering in from a
Yeah,
temp.
it was like the proverbial foot in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Google, your employee less than what, 500 or
Yeah.
something in there?
Yeah.
It was crazy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What did you like about that except being at Google? What were the things like, wow, this is really cool, this stuff?
It was really interesting at Google at that time because it was like people were just starting to search online at the time.
Yeah.
And so like everyone kind of knew that there was a lot of potential there and like Google was going to be big. Everyone knew by then Google was going to be big. And so when I got the chance to move to Google, I thought, well, you would have to be an idiot not to do this. I went there and I worked in the marketing department and I was basically a project manager in the marketing department. I was trafficking all of the print pieces. It was a lot of print at that time. It was like print advertising and
Isn't that funny?
yeah, like little handouts to salesmen.
It's funny to think about,
I know.
10 or 11 years ago, that's how they were doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Print advertising for an online service. Yeah. Because all of our marketing was to advertisers in like we would do like little inserts in magazines and stuff. I mean, not little, they were like
Yeah.
high volume advertising. But it was still like a lot of sell sheets because we were supporting the enterprise sales folks in the AdWords unit, Google search, enterprise appliance, and all those things. And so it was a lot of print projects which have a lot of steps in production. You have to copy and the design and the printer and the vendor and the specs and the cost and everybody has to know everything about everything. And I think I had like 7 or 8 lines of business that I was supporting, and all of them had 20 to 40 projects going on at a time, and international and all the translation. It was just like the volume was insane.
Yeah.
So I would like subdivide my day into 15-minute increments and be like, okay, from 8 to 8:15, I'm going to work on the highest priority project for Google Italy. And it ended up being a little disjointed, but I didn't see any other way to manage it.
Is that where you kind of had gained your appreciation for project management tools? Or lack thereof?
I didn't even think of a tool as an option at the time. My tool was Excel,
Yeah.
and I only maintained like the most minimal amount of information possible in that spreadsheet to be up to date. Like, when is it going to be done? Was pretty much all I could keep track of. But I did develop a fairly good ability to keep a lot of plates spinning in the air at one time. And it did create a lot of empathy for my future customers over the years.
So let's talk about being a woman in technology.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it. So you have, I'm going to assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that you bumped up against the good old boys network at some point in time.
I suppose so.
Yeah. So, knowing that, how much has it
Half of them are
changed?
in this room right now.
Knowing that, how much do you think it's changed over the last, say, 4 or 5 years? So you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
You've been at LiquidPlanner, for 7 years.
Yeah.
Right? So you've been in business for 15 years. The last 4 or 5 years, how have you seen the change from, say, 4 years ago today than it is today? And I'm talking about bumping into that good old boy network and the crap that kind of goes along with that.
Well, that's a little bit of a challenging angle on the question because my life as an individual contributor at PlayStation and Google and Amazon is so different than my life at a startup at all, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you're at a startup, you don't really understand your own boundaries, and so I think you pay less attention to the Good Old Boys network unless you're in an industry where that's prevalent.
Yeah, like if you were a fisherman.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah,
Well,
like
yeah.
oil and gas or
Yeah,
something. I don't know.
exactly. It was dominated by that.
So it was much more prevalent for me personally in the big companies where I would just look around the room and I'd be like, no, only women at the table. And I think a lot of people, maybe hopefully less now, but a lot of people have that same experience, and that's it kind of chips away at maybe your confidence in
Yeah.
whether you belong there. I just saw an infographic come out today that said Google is 70% male.
7%.
70.
70%.
Google is 70% male. 70-30.
Yeah. It's actually.
And I'm sure the distribution varies by function. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so in the startup world, it's been much less of an issue for me. And I think also because, the founders of the company who I worked for up until 2 years ago, I guess I kind of still work for them. They kind of work for me. Anyway, they just aren't like that. And it was never an issue at my company, and I think that the effect of that culture has been positive for us in terms of who we have on team now.
So you're raising money the last time. So congratulations for raising $8 million last month.
Thank you.
So definitely big congratulations for that. But in that process of raising that $8 million, I would guess you're talking to an inordinate amount of men versus women in that process.
I pitched one woman.
Out of how many?
I don't even know.
Yeah, so a bunch.
A lot.
Yeah, so 1 out of 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you feel it there? Do you feel that in the, did you
Well, I know that it's very nice to your face.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I don't think you really know what is happening
Yeah.
if you're being discriminated against. I don't think it is always obvious. I think it's more subtle,
Yeah.
and people may not even know they're doing it.
Sure.
I don't think that I think if you're in my position, there's not much of a choice other than to just act like it's not happening
That's true.
and just right on through.
Wait.
Yeah. I mean, what are you to do?
Yeah. Well, you can't necessarily do anything other than,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
put your head down.
the only strategy I've ever been comfortable with is acting as if it's not an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how else to approach it. But it's working okay so far.
Just keep it, sometimes it doesn't matter. Because it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think it's always getting better, it doesn't matter. What advice would you give a young woman who wants a successful career in tech? You've been asked this question probably 10 times, but I know that people in this audience want to hear that. What's your advice on?
I think my general philosophy is, the answer will always be no if you don't ask. I mean, it may be a little cliche at this point, but, you have to put yourself out there. You have to just go for it, even if it's not comfortable, even if you don't feel like you belong or deserve it. You have to ask for it, or you will never get it.
Well, there is that a little bit of that fake it before you make it. I mean,
Yeah.
I was talking to someone in the audience tonight, that, what the hell doing? I'm like,
Nobody knows what they're doing.
that's not unusual.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it.
I mean, I got a job as chief operating officer at our company, and I learned finance on YouTube. So, I mean,
There you go. Yeah.
literally. I mean, I asked a lot of questions of people who did
Sure, but
know what they were doing.
yeah,
But, I mean,
just
everyone does. And I think, I can't give you the correct sources, but there are you will read a lot of things that say, men are more comfortable, or maybe it's not even more comfortable, they feel like they're better than they actually are. And women feel like they're worse than they actually are. So if we can close that gap,
yeah,
that would be progress.
that would be yeah.
You're not that awesome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And you're so much more than you think you are. That is great. I know you're doing a lot yourself and helping promote women in tech, but what can the audience do to help? What can 50 people, 60 people do to help? I mean, what are the little things that?
Well, I think you have to be a little more persistent than you might otherwise be with other things. I'll give you an example. So I'm part of the steering committee for an organization called Ada Academy. Do you guys know what Ada Academy is? Yeah. Okay. So Ada Academy is a development academy for women that are changing careers, and it was a bold approach by the the Technology Alliance to begin the program in the first place. And, you know, I kind of jumped in with both feet, not really knowing really what it meant to be on the steering committee. And they brought women into this organization that had all kinds of backgrounds. I mean, they were teachers or linguists or like all kinds of crazy backgrounds, but they, you know, they had certain aptitudes and interests in technology, and they just, you know, said, for a year, you're going to study this. And so it's been really interesting to watch the community rally around the organization. We're a sponsor of the program, and we now have an ADA apprentice at LiquidPlanner. And I kind of had to push my CTO a little bit to do it. I'm like, we gotta do this. We gotta do it. You know, not because I'm on the steering committee, but just because it's the right thing to do. And he was like, well, we have so many UW interns with computer science degrees, and like, there's so many good ones, and want to work with us, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I know, still gotta do it. And we ended up doing it. It's been just an amazing experience. I think people on our team have gotten the opportunity to go and mentor, and we now, I'm super proud of this, we now have 5 female engineers for the planner.
Yes.
45%. 45% female engineers for the planner. 5 out of 11.
That's great.
I know, that's like,
It's like double what you're
I know. If I'm ever having like a sad moment, I'm just like 45%. 45%. But I mean, I think a lot of it, you know, it kind of stemmed from that. And we have a Code Academy graduate who works at LiquidPlanner.
Sure.
Code Fellows. Sorry.
Good fellows.
Code Fellows. So many good
Cook Phil's alone.
And it's really exciting to see it kind of take off. And so if we can do it, anybody can.
Yeah.
Sign up to sponsor the next cohort of ADA Academy if you, or convince your employer or
Yeah.
anyone you know.
Yeah.
It's a great program.
Cook Phil's is great. You know, they're all doing pieces and parts to help.
Yeah, there's so many ways that you can do something.
Yeah. Yeah. How long do you think it will be before it's a 50-50 split of women and men as CEOs of technology?
CEOs?
Yes.
What are we now?
Like 4.5%. That was
Wait, what is it?
4.5%.
4.5%?
I think when I was like, Data was probably about a year old. Oh, very good.
Is this like a time capsule moment or something? We're gonna like write it down and revisit in 10 years?
No, 10 years? You think
Gosh.
it's 10 years?
I don't know, I'm not like,
More than 10 years.
no, I don't really feel, yeah, I don't feel super optimistic about that at this point. The trends are not good. From what I've seen, it's actually gotten kind of worse lately.
I mean, I asked you first, but for me, I would say 2030, 2040. Year 2030, year 2040 before we're at a 50-50 split. So 25 years.
I hope it's less than that. 2015, what should we do about that?
Doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it.
All right, we'll tackle women
Keep telling men they're not as good as they're supposed to are. I'll keep telling women they're much better than you think they are.
We'll take it on the road.
Yes.
Our self-routine.
Yes. Do you think having a woman president will help? If that would happen. Not saying it does or will.
Hillary and
I'm just saying, do you think if we had a woman president, it would help raise the bar or raise the awareness or raise whatever it is that would help women CEOs become CEOs, women people?
yeah, I mean, whoever said it can't hurt. You're right, it can't hurt. You know, I think actually just having very prominent women as CEOs helps. Mary Barra, I think, is the CEO of GM. Is that her name? Right?
Yeah. IBM?
Marissa.
Where are you, Marissa?
I don't know. I was actually looking at the list, Forbes published the list today of the like 100 most powerful women or most influential women. And there are actually a lot of women CEOs of big companies.
Well, But it's all relative.
It's all relative.
A lot compared to 10 years ago, yes.
Yeah, although, I mean, to look at the list, it is pretty impressive. It's like GM, IBM, Pepsi, I mean,
Yes.
there's a lot. So maybe we can just focus some more attention on, you know, what got them there?
Yeah, well, that
How do we get other people
yeah, how
there?
do we get involved in technology?
Yeah. Everybody just read LinkedIn right away.
Okay. I know you have done a debt round. I know you've done an equity round. Are you a fan of taking VC money, angel money, or bootstrapping? Because you've kind of done
Everything.
all three.
Yeah. I think the right money at the right time, you know? We were founder and angel funded in the beginning.
Sure.
You know, our business model is one that allowed us to do some pretty intensive R&D at the beginning. You know, we don't have a network effect business like
Sure.
Twitter, where you need everybody on it all at once in order for it to be successful.
Yeah.
We could take a slower approach and learn from customers and fix the product over time. And, you know, that was a good way to bootstrap the business. The debt was a good option for us too at the time, because we weren't ready to raise VC, but we knew we needed some additional capital.
Sure.
I think, you know, you can hear a lot of horror stories about debt.
Yeah, it's pretty unique, actually.
Yeah.
Fairly unique in the tech world to take a debt round.
Yeah, when you're not VC backed. Yeah.
Not anything.
It might become more prominent though. So the organization that we borrowed from is called SaaS Capital, and they only lend to companies that are at a certain monthly recurring revenue run rate and have maintained it for a long time.
Sure.
And we had very predictable revenue, and so it made sense for us. It made sense for them. You know, I think when you look at raising money, you have to look at the total cost. You know, raising VC money is expensive as well. I mean, think about your focus and the time and the distraction, and you know, there's a lot that goes into it, and you have to really be ready. And we weren't ready a year ago. So it got us from A to B. The debt got us from A to B.
Sure.
Yeah,
And that's the whole plan of the money.
that's the whole plan.
Get from A to
It doesn't always work out
to
that way.
C, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. What problem are you solving at LiquidPlanner?
One problem. Oh,
Yeah.
what is the company? What problem am I solving personally? or what is the-
No. Like if
Our
there's-
solution.
Yeah, if LiquidPlanner was saying, okay, here's what we're solving, what is that?
Okay, I thought you meant me personally.
Oh, what are you solving? Liz, what are you solving? Are you solving something?
At the moment, I'm just solving prep for my money board meeting.
Okay.
So, you know, we have a lot of opinions on the project management market.
Mhm.
You know, and who here is like, who's used Microsoft Project?
I think
Everyone
that's-
looks so happy.
Excuse me, the purpose right here? Yeah, the one looking behind me?
Yes.
So why did you seem so excited when you said that?
Because it sucks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the problem we're
That's
solving.
usually-
You know, we just believe that there is a better way to do it. In a nutshell, you know, when you use Microsoft Project or a Microsoft Project copycat, you're kind of putting your schedule into the tool. You tell the software what's going to happen when. And we think that just does not match reality. The reality is the software can actually probably figure out when you're going to get things done better than you can, because there are so many moving pieces. You know, our customers are dealing with constantly changing priorities, and a tool that is user-driven in terms of inputs doesn't adapt well to lots of change, because when a human being has to go propagate that change, it doesn't happen.
Yes.
So our tool allows you to just like put things in the right order, like what's important, and then we'll tell you when you're going to be done, and you can make decisions using that information. So really, we're about helping teams adapt to the changing circumstances of their business that, you know, happen minute by minute. And this is our reality. I mean, I look around LiquidPlanner, we're about 50 people now, and I see the work going on in our own workspace, and I am just like blown away by the volume and the pace of the work. And I think there is no way you could ever manage that volume and pace in a traditional tool. So we are about helping teams be more responsive
Sure.
and still be good at planning and forecasting.
Planning forecasting. That's kind of.
I mean, like if you're shipping software, for instance, it's really helpful to know when that's going to ship.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
Yeah, it is.
Because then you could actually, say market it,
Yeah.
support it,
On
sell
time.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You recently did a blog post about radical transparency.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
read that blog post. Why is that? Why did you write that blog post?
I think
It's really actually the audience. It's her blog. What's the URL of your blog?
on my personal blog,
Yeah.
it's lizpearce.com.
Yeah. So lizprc.com. It's really quite good. So interesting topic. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I mean, so it was, I can't remember what event it was, but I was talking about the fact that like everyone in the company can see my to-do list. It's actually, that's become less true over maybe the fundraising process basically,
Sure.
where like,
Yeah.
I was like, where am
Something's
I? But like we do have a really almost like insane degree of transparency in our company. And I think it changes our culture in a really dramatic way. When I have candidates come in to meet me and they ask me what it's like to work at LiquidPlanner, I kind of like pull up our workspace and I'm like, if you just read this, it's like reading somebody else's Facebook feed,
Sure.
right? You can just see what everyone is doing, and it creates serendipitous moments where someone on one team sees something that someone on another team is doing, and they make a mental connection about what that means for the problem they're trying to solve. And it's very hard to explain, how that impacts teams.
Yeah.
But I literally could not go back to working another way. People talk a lot about, micromanaging and like, is having to know everything, does that make you a micromanager if you have to know everything?
Yeah.
Does that? Maybe, but like, if you don't have to ask for it, if you can just go seek out the information you need, then like, it's actually the answer to not micromanaging. You don't want to bug someone, you don't want to ask someone to do something extra. You just want the information to be available to you or to anyone else who wants to think about general problems that the business is encountering and how they might solve them.
Sure.
So I think it can be an answer to a lot of problems. It can also cause other problems if people don't understand the etiquette of a transparent organization.
Yeah, because it's subtly different than many organizations.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be sensitive to the people around you and think through whether what you say will impact someone negatively.
Sure. Bull in the China closet probably doesn't work too well. Yeah,
I mean, we try not to hire those people.
that's all I'm saying. That person wouldn't feel comfortable in the environment. Because if we did hire them by accident, like within a few weeks, we're like, oh, I don't think this is good.
Yeah, or else like other people will be like, oh god, that person.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah,
He's gotta go.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you also like there's kind of, you pick up on signals of like what's cool and what's not cool,
Yeah.
and everyone it's just like normal emotional intelligence in an online environment.
Sure.
Stuff you with that one, huh?
Well, I was going to ask you, I'm going to skip a thought and I'm going to go, you're a marketer, have been a marketer most of your career at some level, shape, or form.
Once a marketer, always a marketer.
There, I'm getting there. Once a marketer, always a marketer. You have a VP of marketing. Do you think you get involved in marketing too much? You transitioned from there to there,
Yeah.
from VP marketing. Everyone transitioned from VP marketing, then became CEO or CEOs, and then CEO. So, do you think you put your fingers in there too much?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I have a pet peeve, or it's not a pet peeve, it's just a pet issue, and I think I don't know, is it? Well, anyway, Yes, it's not something that irritates me, it's just something I care deeply about, which is, you know, writing, copy, like, I want the writing to be right all the time. And it's a subjective thing,
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Content is.
And so I step over the line sometimes. I know it, and luckily we have a type of environment where I can be told that, and I can be like, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Gone too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just, you know, speaking to different people when they come from, say, sales, go into the CEO role, you know, they always have their finger put in
Yeah.
sales because they feel so comfortable in that environment.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to kind of get out of the way.
Yeah.
And that-
Well, luckily I also did sales at the company, so they don't escape either.
Yeah. You did every, basically, every role
Support.
possible.
Yeah. But I do have a special place in my heart for marketing, and it's fun for me.
Yeah.
So it's probably less fun for other people, and I want to do it.
Yes, 100%. No offense.
No, I
Because
know.
you're much better than you really are. That's what you think you are. I will write that down. How much time do you spend in the office? What's your day like? What's the day in Liz Pearce? What's the day in Liz Pearce like?
I like to, so my husband takes the kids to school in the morning,
Yeah,
which gives me like just a few minutes of
quiet time.
quiet, which usually turns into me like calling people on speakerphone and putting my makeup on. So I'm like, oh, I have an idea. I'm just going to call someone on the phone. And they're like, oh, God, you couldn't wait 21 minutes till you got to the office. You got to call me.
Yeah.
So I usually get to the office like between 8:30 and 9. And I pick up my kids 3 or 4 nights out of 5, so I leave at like 5:30, 5:15, 5:30.
And reconnect at what, 8:30?
Yeah, as soon as their heads hit the pillow. Yeah. Yeah, so split shift.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where do you spend your most time during the day today? On what tasks do you spend your most time today?
I really kind of go back and forth across all areas of business. There will actually be days where I do not open my laptop. Not a lot, but like there will be whole days where I just talk to people all day and I never look at my computer or my email. And those I think are my most productive days. So I feel like I am adding the most value when I am working with people through problems all day. And I can come back to my email or come back to like the thing I have to write or whatever it is in the evening.
Sure.
But I really want to get as much face time as possible with people on the team. Now that the fundraising has kind of died down, I've started, trying to have at least 2 meetings a week with people that are not my management team, just people on the team, and hearing what's going on, and like that's the fun part of the job. It's getting to hear what people, what their challenges are, what they love to do, where they want to go, and
Yeah, weird customer stories. Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
complaints about like people don't load the dishwasher, and
Yeah.
just like at home.
Every company. Doesn't matter what
Who is
size.
supposed to unload the
Yeah,
dishwasher?
exactly. We have a list of them. We have a start packing.
Is it like someone's assigned for the week, or
No, it's actually a day.
that's a good idea.
And then we have, every week, we have a clean up refrigerator.
I almost was later tonight because I was going to unload the dishwasher at the office, and then
Yeah, way too good. What are the things you seek out in people you hire besides a natural curiosity?
drive.
Explain drive to you.
Someone who acts with purpose. I talk to a lot of people who just kind of like go like that, and like I want to talk to someone and say like why did you make that decision,
Yeah.
and for there to be a good reason. And sometimes they're just like what, just seem good.
Good.
Like really.
Just good.
And sometimes people have really interesting backgrounds and have made really interesting choices, and there is logic and thought and purpose in why they need this. We have we have a woman on our sales team who was a firefighter.
Good for
And I
her.
was like, damn, that's awesome.
Yeah,
You know, and she, like,
is men's territory. That would not be, that would not be right one day one.
right, when that can be 50/50.
Yeah.
Firefighting.
Yeah. 2017.
But I love that. Like, I can't exactly remember the story, but I remember being impressed by it and thinking like, gosh, here was someone who just like wanted to prove to herself and to the world
Yeah.
that she could firefight just like anybody else. And like, does that like, do you think firefighter, salesperson? Maybe not. But she's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's,
She's probably a bit tenacious.
yeah, like nothing's going
Yeah.
to stop her.
It's like your mentor.
Yeah.
Just get out of
Gets
it.
hung up on, so what?
Yeah. Where do you intend to find new hires in the near future?
Start a friend.
Love it.
You know, I spend a lot of time out
Yeah, you do.
meeting people and talking to people and building relationships, and it's in large part to help find talent.
Sure.
It's out there,
Yeah, you just gotta dig.
yeah. And I really encourage everyone on the team to do the same thing. You know, we want to work with people that we like, and we put that on everyone on the team.
And if you took your job in a month, in one big month, to pie chart,
Yeah.
what percent of that pie chart would be devoted to that, looking for good people?
Well, like 5 to 10% of like outwardly looking.
Outreach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have recruiters
I was gonna
too.
say, you have a recruiter?
Yeah.
How's that?
One of them's here. Anyway,
Yeah.
we have a few recruiters that we work with. I mean, when you're trying to hire aggressively, you have to.
Yeah.
It's just a necessary
Yeah.
evil. But I'd rather pay employees to refer people.
It's better for the ecosystem.
Yeah. And we just started paying people more for every new employee that they hire. So like, the more you refer, the more money you make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Because people, you should want to refer your friends
Yeah.
if you enjoy what you're doing. Is there such a thing as work-life balance in a startup?
Yeah, I think so. I think the lines between work and life are really blurred. I was supposed to leave work today and go to my daughter's Mandarin presentation or thing, and I didn't go because I couldn't. But like on a normal day I would, and I leave the office at a normal time when other people leave the office.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know what my kids' school looks like, and, you know, we eat dinner together and go
Yeah,
to
so-
soccer on the weekends. Like, I think I live a normal life for the most part.
Yeah.
I outsource a lot of stuff, which is the only way that
Yeah,
is possible.
Yeah, you know, I asked that question, not everybody, but quite a few people. And the people that say there isn't are the people that are talking to, I'd say, a smaller scale company that has, 5, 10 people,
Yeah.
where everybody's balls out. I mean, that's just the way it has to
I'm
be.
glad you said balls.
So, all the reason I said it is because you already said it. I would not have said that if I was saying it first.
Phew.
Is there? That's good.
Well, I think,
What is more-
let's continue on that thread briefly.
Yes.
There have been times where there hasn't been good work-life balance.
Sure.
I was reading this book about meditation. I talked about this in my little choir thing the other day about how I started meditating. And there's this great book called Search Inside Yourself, which is written by a Google guy, and they implemented this meditation program at Google. And it's been really, really interesting to kind of relook at my day-to-day life through that lens of like, can you really just be present in whatever you're doing? There was also something there that said like wherever your mind wanders when it's at rest is like where your heart is in a way. And I think that,
That's interesting.
not to say my heart isn't with my children, it is, but like I pretty much will always think about them. Like, that's just where my head goes. Like, I can be like looking out at the, ocean, thinking about work. And it's not because it's like, I feel like I must be working.
Yeah.
It's because I'm interested in it. I want to solve problems and I like it and it's what I like to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not work.
Yeah, it's not. I mean,
Yeah.
it is and it's not.
Yeah, most. Any company I've ever started and been involved with at a deep level, your work is not work, it's what you do
Yeah.
because you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what many of the people in this room are doing, is they're starting a company. It's not because it's not like I'm going to work. It's like, no, I just do this.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Because you're so lucky that
Whether
you
you're fixing, whatever, yeah, it's.
CJ and Fix.
Yeah.
Ah.
So-
I'll make you some
As
earrings.
Fix.
So, yeah, it's not work. It's.
Yeah, you just have to be careful because you can get really boring.
Yes. Very boring.
People are like, no.
Especially for your partner. Very
Yes.
boring.
Yeah.
Yes, that's not good. You do some blogging. Can you tell us your favorite blog post that you have done yourself? What's been your favorite blog post the last, say, 3 years?
I really liked, I wrote a blog post about project management lessons learned in the kitchen.
You're kidding me. That's your favorite one?
Yeah.
Really?
It was an outlet for me because I have a friend who cooks in my house a lot and she doesn't project manage her cooking very well. And I'm just like, I actually was able to use some examples from her missteps in the kitchen in my blog post. So it was like a little release for me.
Just so you know, I didn't read that one.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, when you make a stir fry, start the rice first.
Good to know. You learn a lot of stuff starting out. It's the first time I learned about starting the rice first. There we go. And tell me what other blog you appreciate or admire. What other would you like to read or maybe you're reading from time to time?
I recently have started reading a lot of the blog posts on firstround.com. Have you ever looked at that blog?
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, they've been doing a really nice job, and they have a lot of different contributors to the blog. It's a VC blog, but they really, I think, write about issues that are meaningful for
It's real
entrepreneurs.
truth. I mean, they're coming
Yeah.
from a real,
Yeah,
this is really what happens.
yeah. So I've been reading that blog a lot.
Yeah.
It's on my favorites thing, so I know that's high bar.
Get on that list. Yeah.
I try not to read a lot of mommy bloggers or anything like that because it starts a bad emotional spiral.
Yeah, it's kind of like Real Housewives.
Yeah.
The same kind of thing. Was there a person you met over the last 10 years that you were a loss at words with when you met them?
Ooh.
So is there anyone you bumped into or met or whatever, you were like, holy crap, I'm meeting this person. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say. Has it been one of those people?
Maybe you think I've met more famous people than like.
It doesn't have to be famous. It could be just somebody that you really admire.
That's a hard one. I feel like I did meet somebody, I forget who it was.
I'm sure you met someone. I would hope you met someone.
You know what? There was, actually, this was kind of a moment I reflected on a little bit. So I was like, why was that so hard for me? But I was at a conference and there were a bunch of my competitors at the conference.
Sure.
And I would see their badges and I would turn the other way and run. I was like, ooh, I cannot talk to them. I don't know why I did that, but I was like, I can't go there right now.
I just don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. What would I say to them?
Hello.
Yeah. I know, but I thought about it afterwards. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why do I not make that happen?
So you value content creation,
Writing, yeah.
right? We talk about content in my head. We create content. Right?
Yeah.
So writing.
Writing is an art. Content is a product.
Yeah. Awesome.
You're not as good as you think you are.
That's one of the things I've learned. On top of the rice. How do you see content marketing changing the way your company markets to potential customers?
We do a lot of writing.
Now you know. That's what I'm doing.
I feel very fortunate that we are in a space that has a lot of things to write about. the problems we're trying to solve are ones that almost everybody encounters in some way, shape, or form in their career. And so we have a lot of material, and there's a lot of different viewpoints on those problems. And so I feel like we're not going to like reach the bottom of that barrel anytime soon. Although I've spoken to a lot of marketers and CEOs who are looking at this issue of content marketing, saying like, there's only so much we can say about our field or about.
That sometimes is true.
Yeah. For us, it's really, really important. We see a direct correlation between the amount of posts we put up on our industry and our search engine ranking. And so, it's hard to always find direct attribution to a particular piece of content. But it's one of those things that lifts all of your boats, right?
Yeah.
Like you create a great piece of content, you have something to talk about on social, you have something to send out an email, you have something to like do a webinar about, you have something to make a video about. And so it's a highly leveraged investment, and it's just a great way to attract attention to your business. We've always over-invested there, and I think we will continue to do so.
Yeah.
For as long as we can.
Yeah, I think it's the more I've learned over the last couple of years about just the importance of content, creating great content on a regular basis, and what Google's doing with the search algorithms, it really is putting a lot of pressure on creating good content.
Yeah, make sure you share it on Google Plus.
Yes, that helps. It is owned by the same company. What are the biggest challenges today for starting a company?
I mean, if I were starting a company today, I think the thing that I would fret about most is, really coming up with something innovative, because there are, it's so crowded out there and so difficult to find an angle on, whatever it is you care about. We're in the era of marketplaces, right? So I was just a judge at Startup Weekend last weekend, the BP Startup Weekend, which was really, really my first startup experience. Yeah. And one of the winners was a marketplace for.
That was the B2B Startup Weekend, right?
The B2B Startup Weekend. Yeah. One of the winners was a marketplace for local artists, performance artists that want to find venues that need performers. And it was an angle I hadn't thought about. But the model is the same, cutting out the middleman.
Sure.
And so pretty soon, all the marketplaces will be taken, right?
Yeah.
So what is the next thing? And I think, as the world moves towards things like the Internet of Things, I know nothing about the Internet of Things. I broke 6 Fitbits before I gave up entirely. So, yeah, actually it was a fuel band.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you have to constantly stay on top of the trends, or you're going to be,
Yeah, it's not easy.
6 months too late, and that is everything in internet time.
What has been your biggest achievement thus far? Professionally?
I mean, I think that, for me, my biggest achievement is finding a career that I love. Finding something that I'm really fulfilled by. My friends are like, you're the person that we know that likes their job the most. And that for me is a huge achievement. I'm like, I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love going to work every day. I love doing the same, essentially working at the same place for 7.5 years. Who has that experience?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm just proud that I found something that fits.
How many people in this room have worked in a place more than 5 years? Wow. More than 10 years? Holy crap. More than 15 years.
The numbers are getting so
Wow. See, that really does surprise me.
Yeah.
It just seems so much job hopping, and I can say that random. It's not necessarily job hopping, but every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, people are switching jobs pretty frequently.
I interviewed a guy yesterday who just graduated from UW, and we talked a lot in the interview about his generation, and he was making some really interesting observations on his generation and how they feel about corporate America and what they expect and how they're disenchanted and how they have no intention of staying in any job for more than a year and how they're going to just use these companies to get ahead in their career. And I'm like, I'm really glad you're telling me this. So, yeah, I mean, just a very different viewpoint than I think, when I was looking for a job, I was like, dear God, someone give me a
Just give me
check.
a job.
Like,
Just let me work.
yeah.
Give me a paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly are always like looking for the next opportunity, but like, I don't think we took for granted that, like, there was that much choice.
Yeah.
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 Now making myself so old.
I might ask. With the elevated nature of women in tech from companies like our friends at Google, etc., how do you think it's going to change how people enter the workforce? So my point is here, this event, other events, you've done many events where we're talking about women in technology, more women in technology, more women in technology. So how do you think that will affect both men and women in the marketplace, say, 5 years from now, in the fairly near future, fairly near future? How do you think, is that going to influence, good, bad, and different?
Yeah.
I'm not saying either way. How do you think that's going to influence?
I think we have pretty good momentum in terms of more women getting into tech, and I think we can see it in a lot of small ways that will add up to big ways.
Mm-hmm.
I'm involved in the Seattle Girls School
Sure.
pretty heavily, and we did a startup field trip where we had all these girls go to all of these women-led startups, and like you were seeing the light bulbs go off. So I think for us to really achieve progress in this area, we have to start much earlier in the process. When girls first start thinking about science and math and engineering,
Sure.
and whether that is something that they fit into. So I think we're going to start to see some movement there. You can look at the statistics and see that companies that have like more diversity at the top levels outperform those with less.
Yeah.
And, that kind of speaks for itself. So we have a lot of work to do, but hopefully we'll have just a roaring economy thanks to women.
I think, of course, that's exactly what we're thinking. Okay,
I
so
hope to contribute to that.
questions from the audience. Feel free to ask whatever you like. Go ahead and raise your hand. Any questions? All the way to the back.
I know you like problem solving, but what is it that really drives you every day about LiquidPlanner that wakes you up in the morning and excites you and gets you thinking about it 24/7?
I remember the first customer that bought LiquidPlanner in 2008. The company was Butterball Farms. Not the turkey people. They actually make butterballs. Like at McDonald's, and I remember being on, I actually had never sold a thing in my life before LiquidPlanner. And I remember being on a call with Butterball Farms, and the guy Eric, what the hell is his name? Eric something. He was actually kind of like prepping us before the larger call and saying like, here's why you guys are the right solution. This is the problem we're trying to solve. This is what we need to talk about. Don't say anything about turkey. And like he was like getting us ready for this call, and I realized that like, oh my God, this guy is going on a limb in order to get this thing that we have because he really believes it will help him. And like I had kind of a light bulb moment at that point, and I saw that light bulb moment like many, many times over, in the years since then, where like you can talk to a customer in South Africa. Like we have a customer who's like, creating schools in South Africa using LiquidPlanner. We have like SpaceX as a customer. We have all of these companies that are doing all of these different things, and when you actually talk to them and see that what you are building, what you are working towards, is helping them in their job, in their career, helping their companies, like, that is like crap. I mean, like, that is just the best thing ever, because you are working for a company that's a for-profit company. You're like, we're out there trying to make money like everyone else, but you're actually doing something to help someone else. And that is really meaningful. And so we try to like get everybody talking to customers, because as soon as you hear the voice on the other end of the line or like see them over the webcam, you're like, okay, this is a real human being out there that is depending on us to deliver them something of value that will help them. And I think that's why I love it so much. And I read every support ticket that comes in.
Everyone. Everyone.
I do. Yeah.
Do you have no support tickets?
And we have our fair share. I just want to see what the problems are. And a lot, they say things in the support tickets that are not just like, how do I activate my account? They say things that are interesting and relevant about the product. And like, I don't always get to sit on a customer call every day or even every week, unfortunately, but I still like read every support ticket because it keeps me connected to what the problems are. Yeah.
Yeah, listening to customer service.
This call is being recorded.
Exactly. Just for this.
I was wondering what mistakes you've made along the way that best prepared you to be a successful CEO.
Think of your worst mistake. And I don't see like worst mistake, like the roof element. Like, what was the one that you were like, holy crap, how could I do that? That mistake.
Remember how I talked about my memory earlier? Like, I actually, like,
You should have told me that before we started the interview, I think. Like, yesterday or something?
I have this, like,
Really
I
bad.
have a coping mechanism where I literally, like, I block out the bad things. I know that sounds, I wish I were making this up, but I literally actually forget bad things that happen, including mistakes. Like, I'll give you an example. This wasn't a mistake, unfortunately. I'm gonna try to like reach into the backlog. So my grandmother died like maybe 5 years ago,
Okay.
and I had just like a horrific experience where I like got on a flight, like I booked it for the wrong day. It cost me like $2,000. Like I was gonna be late to the funeral. Halfway through the flight had to turn around, like over Iowa and fly back to Seattle and get off the plane. I was like crying in the airport. Like I was like in tears, bawling on the floor of the airport. And like a couple years later, my sister was like, remember at Graham's funeral when like you had that whole disaster? And I was like, no. And they had to like tell me the story because I totally blocked it out of my brain. Like I just, not gonna pay attention to that anymore. And so like, this sounds really bad, but I really, really try to like think ahead and forget about the things that go wrong.
Interesting mechanism you have there.
It's coping. It's just coping. I think I have messed up in so many ways. I don't think there have been any like big catastrophes. I remember there was like something at Amazon where I think I maybe sent out like a really big promo code to a lot of people that weren't supposed to get it. Maybe they got stuff on Amazon for free. I can't remember. Might have happened.
That might have happened.
Yeah.
Who's your boss?
It was my boss. We should talk about that.
Okay.
Sorry, that was not a helpful answer.
Yes.
Um,
She'll buy a drink.
I will, and then we'll forget about what I was talking about.
Questions all the way in the back, you're saying? No? Go ahead.
So you talk about your mentor and the people who give you good advice. My question is, you talk to a lot of people, a lot of them are very brilliant. How do you pick out mentors? How do you build a good relationship with your mentors?
So the question is, how do you pick out mentors?
I mean, I think there are a few criteria. You should find a mentor that has time for you, right? I mean, I try to mentor as much as possible, and I know that I don't do a good enough job making time for the people that I mentor. So depending on kind of where you are and what you need, find someone who will actually give you the hours. for me, sometimes I try to just like snatch bits and pieces from a lot of different people. So for instance, I met Kristen Chabot, the CEO of Tableau, at an event one time, and like, right after that, I was like, I just got to see if you will have coffee with me one time. And I got him to have coffee with me one time, and I really tried to use that half hour of time really well and make sure I had the questions I wanted to ask ready. I don't consider him like an ongoing mentor. He has like way more things to do than, for me to even be on the radar. But I really use that that 1.5 hour of time. Actually, it ended up being 2.5 hours because I got another coffee one time. But that really meant a lot to me, and I really tried to be respectful of how busy he is, and the fact that he could give me an hour at a time was great. Think about people that have been through your phase of your journey before, that are just like a little bit ahead of you, where they have lessons learned. Like maybe they remember some of their mistakes, and and you can learn from them. And in the same way, you can learn a lot by being a mentor. So if you can find someone that you're just like a little bit ahead of where they are, like you can learn by being a mentor as well. I think you can find great mentors at the Seattle events. I think almost everybody I know in Seattle I have met and reconnected with at events and built a relationship with over time. I've been going to events in Seattle for 7 years, and it doesn't always happen overnight, but most people are very generous in their introductions. And if you say, hey, I'm starting a company, I'm trying to solve this problem, if you know anybody who can help, please let me know. People will make introductions. And it's really a form of currency, so you should think about, if you can give introductions and make them for other people, people will be more likely to speak with you, and you can generate a really tight-knit circle through those activities.
All of that.
So just a question about the different phases of the company. In your personal leadership style, do you think you're more like data focused when you make decisions about the strategic direction of the company? Or is it more like gut and like anecdotal? And has that changed over time?
Yeah, I think that in a startup, you never have enough data. Like you can never get as much information as you need to make data-driven decisions. And you're always just like looking at scraps, right? You're like, I have this one data point. Like, can I make a good decision with this data point? But you never really have a full picture, I think. And so you try to like look forensically at the data that you do have and make a gut decision based off of that. As an example, we have like somewhat complete data on who our customers are, what their teams do, right? And so we can say kind of like half of them are like IT, engineering, software development, but like that's very fuzzy, right? A third of them are like creatives, professional services, consultants, very fuzzy. So when we go out and target people, who might be interested in the product, we generally target those people, but I can't say like definitively like a team of this type, of this size, in this type of company, in this industry is the ideal customer for me because I have that data to make that decision. So I think it's a combination of data and gut feel. I think in big companies you talk a lot about analysis paralysis, where you can actually get tons and tons and tons of data. You have like the reverse situation in startups where like oftentimes like your systems aren't even instrumented to give you the data. So you don't have the luxury of spending 2 weeks trying to get at it, right? So you have to get as much as you can in a short period of time and make a decision and act on that. So some intuition involved.
Yeah. Especially that early on. Alex?
I was just going to say, can you think of a time in your past, kind of this whole startup thing, when you have felt just like so in over your head, just like in the weeds of like, I know you do project management, like it kind of makes sense. But I mean, do you have any advice for someone when you're suddenly like catching yourself like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pull this off?
Yeah. A woman sitting next to you said something very wise to me.
There's a lot of wise things.
Yeah, she was saying she was like the 80% person, like, you know, find the, and I'm gonna steal your wisdom, Jonan. You know, the 80-20 rule often applies, right? Like what is like the thing you can do that will have the most impact? So we always talk about the force multiplier, right? Like what can you do that will force multiply yourself in some way that will free up bandwidth to do the next thing, right? Prioritization, what has to be done, and then force multiplying. Like how can you create more capacity for yourself? And I think when you are at a small company, like getting that really dialed in is key to scaling. Because if you can say like now is the right person to, like in my case, like I hired an assistant about a year ago, and I was like finally like, okay, I'm looking at my week and I'm looking at how much time I spent scheduling meetings, and I'm like, I can force multiply myself, and I can force multiply like a ton of other people just by hiring someone who can like do this layer of things. And so figuring out the force multiplier equation is number one.
I'll talk to her
And
about
say
it. I feel good about that.
Yeah.
She'll give me the details.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, we enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I hope everyone here enjoyed it. Of course, our sponsors are awesome, and thank you for just supporting us over the last almost 2 years. Seton, thank you for helping out with the space, and also thank you very much to Sheila, wave her hand, Andrew, and Michael for helping put this event on. Without these three people, I couldn't do this at all. So thank you three for helping do this event every month. So have a great night, and I'll see you next month. Thanks a lot.